Okay, we're holding Tazayin Amid Aleph. That is 16a. And we were discussing a very interesting decision by Rav that if someone steals a property and he sells it. Oh, 1 second, I didn't say we're learning in the schus of our learning. We should have the basic English immediately, and we're learning the Lili Nishmas Zahavagol the Bas Baruch Binyamin, and anyone that needs a refuah shleima should have a refuah shleima. Okay, so Rav ruled that when a thief steals a property and then sells it, then he goes and purchases it from the original owner. So he's purchasing it in order to keep it in the hands of the purchaser. He purchased it just to secure it in his hands. And he says everything that he buys is just what he sold is all the rights that he would get in the future. That's what okay. Now the Gemara says, Pshita, it's obvious that Zavna, if he sold it to a second person, Rashi says it's before he went back to the Nigzal, to the person that it was stolen from. So in other words, he sold it to one person. Now, if it's not his anyway, so he sells it to more, why doesn't he sell it to more people? Anyway, it's not his. So he sold it to someone else. Or let's say he died and he gave it over to, he bequeathed it. Yaviv Matana, or he gave it as a gift to someone else. Well, there's one problem with Orta dying, because then obviously what's happening now is then he's going to purchase it. He can't die and then purchase it. I don't know what Orta means. Orta means he bequeaths it to someone, but that would only be if he dies, right? Maybe it means he writes it in a will. What does it mean? Maybe he writes it in a will. If he dies, it's going to be difficult for him to go and purchase it afterwards, right? So anyway, he goes and he purchases it from the original owner. Yeah, so how does he bequeath it? It means he wrote it in a will, not that he actually died. So the rule is, when he goes now and he purchases it, we see that he wasn't concerned about getting it into the hands of the original purchaser, because he's already since then done other things that show that he doesn't care about the original purchaser. Right? He's not worried about his name over here because he's headed in the other direction. The reason why he bought it is because he probably wants to extract it from the original purchaser and say, I'm the real owner, and what I sold you before was nothing, and I'm trying to take it away. Nafale Birusha, let's see what happened was, he sold it. Well, let's describe the story like this. He stole it from his father, and then he sold it. Now his father dies, and he inherited it. So is that inheritance to help the purchaser, or is the inheritance now make him the real owner to extract it from the purchaser? So Yerushim Melehi, it's the inheritance happens automatically. And he's not the one that's going to secure it in the hands of the purchaser. He's worried about his name. He's worried about wants to be a trusted person. That's obviously not what's happening. Let's say the person that he stole it from actually owed him money. So he sells this property that's not his. Okay. Then this robber goes to the person that he stole it from, who happens to owe him money also. And he says, the property that I stole from you, I want to collect as a payment for the money that you owe me. So Chazina, the Gemara says we have to analyze this. If there's other land, we could have taken any field. There's loads of fields. The person, the Nigzal, the one that property was stolen from him, he has other fields as well. Bamar Haibaina. And he says, I need that field, the one that I already sold to someone. So then, look, probably the reason why he's so adamant about getting exactly that field is because he wants that field to go to the person that he sold it to, because he's trying to protect his name, his credit score. And if not, that means that if he doesn't have any other fields, then he's then we don't know that he's trying to protect his name over here. He's just trying to get his money back. And it's the opposite. He wasn't trying to secure the field in the hands of the purchaser.
It says first inherits the property, could go get it back from the person that bought it, but he has to refund him the money. And we've seen in the other cases that the one that was sold the stolen property would get the money from the fake seller.
We're talking about the fake seller. The fake seller is the inheritor. Yeah, it's the same guy. That's what we're saying. Yeah. So that's why. That's the complication here. Well, that's the like, what's going on. That's what we're trying to say. Is when he now inherits it, does that have anything to do with him trying to secure it into the hands of the purchaser? So we say no, because he didn't go out of his way to do that. That just happened automatically. But if he went out of his way to do something, then maybe yes. So if he collects that property for a debt, then maybe he is trying to secure it in the hands. But it depends how many properties the person had. Was that his only option? So if that is only, then we don't know that he's trying to secure it. If he had other options, then why did he choose this? He's trying to secure it. Yoven ale b'matana. Let's say this guy is a real tzaddik, the person that it was stolen from, right? Not only did this guy steal it from him, but then he says, you know what, I'm going to give it to you as a gift. It's like they stole from the gra, his wood or something. He runs after him and says, you can keep it. You know. Anyway, that's what happened though, right?
You don't want him to be robber.
Right. So you have an alev matana. So pligi bar ravacha ravina. Let's say we're talking about now. This thief stole the property, he sold it, and then the original owner gives it to him as a gift. The question is this giving it as a gift in order to secure it in the hands of the purchaser, is giving him as a gift a way to now extract it from the purchaser that he sold it to him? Okay. One of them says a gift, you don't work for getting a gift. It's just like an inheritance. That happens automatically. One of them says matana kemecher. One of them says that a gift is like a sale. Okay, why is this? If he wouldn't have bothered himself and made himself pleasant in front of him, takes a lot of effort to get a gift. Why did he go out of his way to bring him flowers and to smile at him and to tell him good Shabbos and shul and all of this? Because he wanted a gift. Why do you want the gift? Because he wanted to give it to the person that he sold it to, dishonestly, and now he's trying to secure it in his hand to redo his name. Okay. So machlekes, how gifts work, how much effort goes into that.
That when you inherit something, not necessarily you understand where you're receiving, but when you buy something,
right?
You have more than a gift.
Right. It's also a gift, right? Nice in a Torah. Hashem gave it. He bequeathed it. It has both aspects. Okay. We're discussing over here the possibility that he's trying to protect his own credit, his own name. How long would that go on for? So Amar Rav Huna says until the court case. Now the court case means that the original owner had already gone to.
Nice anyway.
The original owner had taken the field away from the purchaser because he said, look, you got a field that the guy sold it to. And now he goes back to the original, to the seller. He goes to the seller who's the thief. He says, I want my money back. And the guy says, well, I don't have your money, I used it, whatever. And now there's this court case, they end up in court or whatever. So that's, at that point when they're in court, then if he goes now to the original owner and tries to buy it, that's too late. Because now they're in court. He's not trying to protect his name anymore. He says, no, even once he went to court, he's still trying to protect his name, and he's trying to protect his name up until the Beis Din puts out a court order. Yeah, what's a drachta foreclosure of some sort. Yeah, but that means is that he can collect. There's 90 days that he has to go search for property that this person has to be able to confiscate it. After those 90 days, he finds a property, and then they announce that they're going to auction it off to see how much money they can get from the property that he found. So then that's another 30 days. So up in the Rav extends the time that there's a possibility that maybe he's going to, like, all this is like students of Rav, that he's going to secure it in the hands of the owner. Rav Papa is a big jump because Rav Huna is a student of Rav, Chia bar Rav is a student of Rav, and Rav Papa is many generations later. Okay. Maskeflo Rami bar Chama. Rami bar Chama has a question. Usually it's to someone, but it doesn't tell me who he's asking it to. Rami bar Chama asks the question on Rav. Michti. Rav said that when the thief goes and buys it from the original owner, he's doing that in order to secure it in the hands of the purchaser. That's what Rav said. So Rami bar Chama has a question: how does it become the hands of the purchaser? The original sale was nothing. But you want to say with this document, the original sale document is a piece of clay. It's like shards. There has no value to that. That was all fake. It wasn't his when he sold it. So now he goes and purchases it, and Rav's saying, okay, now automatically it becomes the purchasers. But how to become the purchasers? The first document was a fake document. Right. There was no value to that. Amalei Rava says, this that Rav said is b'mamine. When he told him like this, he says, I'm writing this document, and I trust that you're going to do everything to make sure that I'm going to end up acquiring it.
So the buyer now knows that he was a gunner? How does he? At what point does he find out that
he knew that he was a ganav? Then there's a whole different discussion.
So he doesn't know yet.
He doesn't know.
So when does he find out?
When he gets a knock on the door and says,
"Hey, I'm a gunner, but here I'm going to make up."
No, it's a knock on the door from the original owner. It says, "Get out of my property." So what are you talking about? I bought it from Reuven, and
no, but if Shimon stole it from Reuven and then sells it to Levi, so if Shimon,
so we made Shimon was the purchaser, and Levi was the seller. Reuven was the seller, and Levi was the original owner.
So when if Reuven now buys it from Levi,
yeah. So now
we're saying that Shimon now owns it,
right?
But when does Shimon find out that Reuven is kind of?
So he probably found out when he gets a knock on the door from Levi, says, "Get out of my property."
Reuven bought it now from Levi.
No, but he bought it from him
after all these
probably either before the court case or this. Levi's already probably taken it from.
No, because I thought this is now Mati. He's asking a basic question. He says, "Okay, so Reuven now got it. He paid for it,
right?
Okay, but now what's Shimon's document worth?"
Right, that's exactly the question.
Right, but the point is, but again, what I'm asking is that if Reuven buys it, he knocks on the door of Shimon and says, "Hey, I was a bad guy, but now I'm a good guy."
No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when Shimon finds out what Reuven had done for him. It doesn't matter. All we're saying is that now that he's whose property is it right now? In other words, Reuven did this without Shimon's involvement, and he went to purchase the property. there's probably at a certain point where there's now a conflict between Reuben and Shimon later, and Reuben says it's my property, and Shimon says no. When you bought it, you probably intended it for me. That's probably what's going on. Okay. This that Rav said is talking about that I trust you that you're going to make sure that it's mine. So in other words, that document is not a total forgery. It has some value. It's the fact that he was trusting him that the property would be secure. That I think you have to add in ditarach the Rosh adds in that you relied on him that you would make sure that he was going to secure it in your hands. So Gamaru Maknila. So he gave it to him. So he
gives to Shimon.
Yeah. Now maybe you're right, Ramesha. Maybe he does know the whole time that it was stolen. But then we end up in the machlekes of Rab and Shmuel. If the money is a gift, or the money is a pikadon, that gets into a separate complication.
So does he write a new document?
So far, no. So far, we're saying
that the
original one is good. What do you have here? He told the rabbi, I trust that you will give me the land. He has faith in the seller, the rabbi, that it will transfer ownership to him. Its ownership will not be legally contested. Exactly. He trusts him.
So
he doesn't say that he knows or he doesn't know. He just trusts that.
He's holding on to this original document that transforms now into a good one.
Right. It's sort of like a future that I trust that everything that you're going to do is going to be for my benefit, and you're going to make sure that it's mine.
That's nice, but how can he know that the original seller is going to sell the property?
He doesn't know anything. The guy says, I have a property for sale, would you like it? They bought it. So instead of asking for title to clear the title and all of that, he says, I trust you're a good guy. I trust you're going to fix everything. So because he trusts him, so he's giving him that future. Okay, Masav Rav Sheshas. Sheshas has a question on this. It says, Mashiirish miyabim macholach. If someone says, I'm selling you what I will inherit from my father. Now, he doesn't know what he's going to inherit. The father is still alive. He could sell everything, before he passes away. We don't know. Mashatala mitzadasi macholach. Whatever my net catches, is that like a fish? Whatever I catch is sold to you. So lo yomer klum, that's not considered anything. Now, from this, we didn't finish the brisa over here, but we already have a question on Rav, because when you try to sell things that are happening in the future, it's not working. So here he's trying to sell him a property that he's going to acquire later, and it doesn't work. So why did Rav say that it does work, and here we're saying that it doesn't work? Anyway, the brisa finishes off. If he says what I'm going to inherit from my father today, or because he was on his deathbed, or what my net catches today, then dvarav kayam, and then we say that it is valid. Now we're looking not at the one where he says today. We're looking at, as we'll see soon why, but we're looking at the one where he says whatever my net catches, whatever I inherit from my father, it's not a valid sale. So why should the sale of the property, which he's going to purchase only later, why should that be considered a valid sale?
Well, what's the logical difference between the end of today and someday in the future? In each case, isn't there a problem how he makes a kinyan?
Yeah, no, the Gemara is going to say later that it's a special takana. And he says today it's because he needs it for his father's Achrichem. Yeah. No, it's not good. The whole sale is not good. Oh, if he says today, so then whatever he catches today.
No, but I mean, like his history, because that's kind of like how bank loans work.
Right.
They give you a loan based on what they think you're going to make, but they base.
Right, but this is a sale. This is a sale. Okay, let's take a look. The Amar Amar Rami Bar Chama. Rami Bar Chama says, this is a great man, Rav Sheshes, and he has a great question. Amar Rava. Rava says, Gabra Kachazina. I see he's a great man, but Tifta like Kachazina, but I don't see the question. Over here he was relying on him, and here he wasn't relying on him. Over here he knows that he doesn't want to be called a thief, so he's going to rely on him, that he's going to make sure that he does everything. I mean, that's basically how we work today. Everything that we do could always be, at least on the computer, everything could be a scam. Like everything. The reason why things work, the reason why things work is because people don't want to lose their, like get one sale, then they have to close down because like forging someone's check or something. I think you can only do that once, right? So, yeah, after that they end up in jail. So, but over here, he's not relying that he's going to need to catch something and all of that. What is it? He said, I sold you whatever I catch. I didn't catch anything. He doesn't. There's no kinyan here that he knows that the person's going to go out of his way to make sure. Okay. Yeah, maybe, especially with the case of the father. Maybe the father's not going to leave him any. It's totally not up to him. Maybe the father's going to sell everything right before he dies.
Do what with the money?
Gift it. He'll gift it. Yeah, that's a good point. He'll gift it. Shalchu al kamed Rab Abba bar Zavda. Right. He Shalchu al kamed Rab Abba bar Zavda. They sent in front of Rab Abba bar Zavda this question. And he says, I don't need to bring this inside the base measures to ask the question. Now there's two Pshatim here in Rashi. He says, no one over there, this is such a good question, no one over there would know the answer. And some say that it's such a lousy question, I don't even have to bring it in. So it's a very extreme interpretations over here. But how do they translate it in the money? Oh, okay.
I didn't change it because it was open.
Oh. No, I want to know in the translation which one they used. They used this question is not necessary to bring inside the yeshiva. Plus, they don't explain which way that's going. Oh wow, you don't even have a note. Oh no, they do have a note here. Oh, they do 25. Some explain that Rabbi Abba remarked that it would be futile to bring the question to the scholars since it was so strong that none of them would be able to resolve the difficulty. Others explain that Rabbi Abba derided the question, commenting that it was not a strong question, it was not befitting to present it to the scholars. Yes, so exactly both of those interpretations. Okay, so Amar Rava Zutrich lefnai v'lefnim lefnim v'lefnai lefnim. This definitely needs to be brought into the yeshiva. Over here, in other words, he's giving the answer. By the sale of the stolen property, the person's relying on the robber that he's going to try to fix his name, and he's going to try to do everything to get it. And over there, there's nothing for him to do. There was a case in Pumpadisa where someone had stolen a property and sold it, and then the person went to the original seller and bought the property, and they paskin like Rav. They said that okay, now that you bought the property, now the sale is valid, right? And I guess it means that they put it into the person's hand, to the purchaser. Oh no, va'isvei means, and they asked the question on it. That's what it means. And they asked the question of Rav Sheshes. Amar Rav Yisrael says, "Zu ein tzrich lefnim." This doesn't need to be asked in the yeshiva. Amar Abaya tzrich lefnai v'lefnim, lefnim v'lefnai v'lefnim. Okay, achasam chadaita v'achaleisam chadaita, because there's a difference. Now the Gemara asks Reb Naftali, it asked the question that you asked. It says, "Maishna Reisha, Maishna Seif." What's the difference between the two cases of the Brisa? One of them, he says, "What I inherit from my father today," one of them he says what I heard from my father, and it's not a good sale. Other one says what I heard today, and it is a good sale. Maishna Reisha, Maishna Seifa. Amar Rabbi Yochanan explains. It's going a very early source here. Seifa Mashirish Mei Abba Hayayim Mishum Kavod Aved. When he's trying to say what I inherit from my father today, what he's referring to is that he needs to buy tachrichem and the burial plot for the father. So what we say is that whatever he's going to inherit today, he's able to. That is that because he needs the funds. They made a takana that it should work. And what my net catches today, the reason for that is another takana, is mishum k'tei because he doesn't have what to eat. So the sages instituted that you should be able to sell your earnings before you earn them, so that you should have what to eat. But if a person says what I earn for the month or something, then that's beyond what he needs for the day. There was no institution that should work. Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav. We have a statement from Rav Huna in the name of Rav. Someone tells his friend, Sada Shani Lekeach, a field that I'm going to buy, when I buy it, it should be sold to you or gifted to you right now. So kana, that works. Surprising. Doesn't seem to fit with that price of Rav Sheshas. Amar Rava says, Mistaber Milsa Drab Besad Stam. Probably Rav only said that with if he said a field that I'm going to buy, not this field that I'm going to buy, because when you get too particular, then it's totally not up to him. How does he know the person's going to sell that field? Aval Besad Zu, but if he says this specific field that I'm going to buy is going to be yours, yeah. A lot of times people say this to their spouse or kids. Yeah, I'm going to get you that house. I'm going to get you that car. I'm going to, and the guy didn't want to sell it. It comes back and says, I tried. So, yeah, someone told me this wealthy guy in Australia he came home one day, he just gave his wife the keys to a new house. Just buy your house, the new house down the block. It's a big one on the anyway. Okay. So
just for her, he's gonna stay where
he is. Yeah, he's gonna stay in the old one with the dogs. Who says that the person's gonna sell it? The Gemara says, but 1 second. Well, Kim, Amarav, I feel Sadazun. Now I don't understand who's saying that. Because Rava, I don't believe, spoke to Rav Huna. There's an age gap over there. Did they say who's saying Velikim? Velikim, it says, is it just the Gemara that's saying it? But it's like an oath. Rav said, even if he says Sadazu, even if he says this specific field, we have a problem. How does he know that he's going to be able to buy that field? Who says the guy's going to sell it? Michti, Rav Kamanam Lashmaiti, who could Rav be holding like that person can do such a transaction like that? It says Reb Meir, that follows Reb Meir. The Reb Meir says, the Maknadavar Shlei Baloi, Reb Meir holds. Second, Yitzi sent us an important message. Let's see. It says, mail an offer they can't refuse.
Did Elohim here?
Make an offer.
Judges?
Oh, make an offer. Yeah. Make an offer. Yeah. I'm sorry. Elikim was an expression of an oath. Yeah. Yeah, that happens sometimes. It happens like that. The Gemara uses a term like that for an oath. Okay. Who's Rav referring to? Who's Rav following? It's Rav Meir. That a person can tell something that hasn't come into the world. The Tanya was started in a brisa. If someone tells a woman, get married to me after I convert. After you convert. He's probably handing her some money together with that. Marry me after I get freed. After you get freed. She's a slave. After your husband dies. So she's already giving the kedushin, and the husband she's still married. After you do chalitza with the yavam, which is the brother and right, the brother's the husband's brother. Or maybe he was already married to her sister, and he wants to marry the other sister, but this sister's dying or something. So he says, "I'm marry me after your sister dies," which was his other wife. He can't marry two sisters while they're both alive, but if one dies, he can marry the other one. So Eina Mikudeshes, it doesn't work. And Ramei Aram Mikudeshes. Ramei says it does work. He's talking about a woman. He's not talking about any woman. He's talking about this specific woman, which means he's talking about this specific field, right? That would be comparable to this specific field. Ramei says that it works. So therefore, I think according to this, I don't know if we had to go through all of those questions before when we said some chadaita and lay some chadaita, can say that he's following the opinion of Reb Meir, that a person can sell something that's coming in the future. I think we had other ways of answering this. Taisva says, Taisva's answers. So Taisva is asking, so why was the Gemara not answering it so easy? You see the Taisva's before Mashiach and Tezayin and Aleph. Taisva's answers, we're not asking a question on Rav. We're asking a question on us that we paskin like Rav and we don't paskin like Rameir. How do we follow? How does it fit with us? Yeah, we have a contradiction. We follow Rav, but we don't hold like Rav Meir, so how does it work? So for that, we're going to need another answer of some Chadaita. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, we had this in Kedushin, exactly. No, we don't know what the motive is that she's converting. He says, I'm going to marry you after you convert. We don't know that she's converting. Maybe she's been in the process for right? It doesn't say that. Yeah. And that's another discussion, but it doesn't necessarily involve this. Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says, Hamaiti Shtarakna B'Shuk. Remember what a Shtarakna is? We had it like 2-3 days ago. It was about, a Shtarakna was when someone obligates himself to a debt, even though he never borrowed the money yet. Means whether the loan comes through or it doesn't come through, he already owes the money. So if someone finds a document like that in the marketplace, you can return it to the lender. It means the one that's going to use it to collect. If you're concerned that maybe it was Kasav Lilvais, he wrote it, the document, because he wanted to borrow, but he never ended up borrowing. That doesn't matter if he never ended up borrowing. He's already indebted, so that he has to pay it anyway. And if it's because of the pirayin, if it's because we're concerned that maybe it was paid up already, that's a real concern over here. We're not concerned about that. Because if it would have been paid, he would have torn it up. Yeah. What happened was he instead of tearing it up, he threw it in the garbage. The other guy went and took it out. Yeah. You have to shred it. Amr of Nachman. Nachman says, Abba min safri de daini de marshumol Abba. Historical little comments. Reb Nachman says, my father was a scribe in the Bezdin of Shmuel. What was Reb Nachman's father's name? Nachman was Nachman bar Yaakov, I think.
Yeah.
So
it was Nachman bar Yaakov.
Thank you. So you have that there? There is another Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, and I think it wasn't clear, like if it's Stam Rav Nachman, if it's Rav Nachman bar Yaakov or Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Anyway, let's assume it's Rav Nachman bar Yaakov. My father was a scribe of Shmuel, and I was 6 or 7 years old. And I remember that they would announce and say, that if you find the documents of a knaisa, which means that there's a debt even without the loan taking place, that you're allowed to return it. Okay, Shmuel paskin like that.
Wow. Roll the guy coffee.
It's
Well, at least you got in the door. You don't even realize that.
Amar of Amram.
Yeah,
The doors are not.
miracles were made just for you.
No, it's open.
Just for you.
Amar of Amram. Amram says, you're telling me that this is a statement from Shmuel. You're telling me that this is a statement. Yeah, it's a Shmuel or Rav Nachman in the name of his father in the name of Shmuel. Rav Amram says, I know this from a Mishnah. It says, Kol Maisa Besdin, any act of Besdin, which means anything that Besdin instituted, any document that was, right now we think that Maisa Besdin means anything that was ratified, anything that was notarized in Besdin, is Hareza Yachsa, you could return it to the owner. Al Malechashin Lipiran. That means that why are you returning it? Obviously, because we're not concerned that it was paid up. If it would have been paid up, it would have been torn. Amalei Rab Zera. Zera says, Masnisin, you don't have a proof from our Mishnah. That's talking about documents of foreclosure or other documents of authorization that don't have to do with paying up. Those documents, what's a foreclosure document? The Besdin wrote that that this person owes money, and you can take its property to collect it. So it was paid up. We're going to see in a moment that if he did pay it and not, you see, this is the rights to collect a certain property. So either he has it or he doesn't have it. What are we talking about? Paying it up. So Amarava, what are you saying that you can't pay those up? In Nardai, they said that even if the Besdin had evaluated a property to pay someone's debt, but if the person comes up with the money, he can pay the person off before the forget about that whole evaluation, appraisal.
This 12-month period, we mentioned that before, that if someone sold the property, that someone else
Someone sold the property in Jerusalem.
someone else he could get it back.
Yeah, but that had to do with the laws of Yovel and those types of things. No, now we're talking about that if a property is confiscated from someone, person has because of a debt, he has time to still pay up his debt and get his property back. It doesn't have to do with the sale of Jerusalem, the houses in Jerusalem. That's something else. Here we're just talking about the can the person pay off the debt still when after the property has been taken?
So is this opinion saying that after the Beis-Din has Kiyum, the star, it can be returned?
Yeah, that's what we're thinking now.
But that doesn't mean it's been repaid.
No, because it hasn't been repaid. But if you find a document with a promissory note, you that's ratified in the Besdin,
Right.
turn it to the lender, and the lender can use it to collect. But maybe he paid it up. So we say that no, if it would have paid up, it would have torn it. So we asked the question, but we have a Mishnah that says this. Kol Maisa Besdin Arezi Yachzer. Why do I need Shmuel to say this? So, or not, why do I need Shmuel to say this? We have a Mishnah that supports this. Comes along Reb Zera, and he says that Mishnah is not talking about promissory notes. that Mishnah is talking about foreclosure notes or authorization to go and confiscate property. So, but where those documents, there's no concern that maybe it was paid up, because it's not part of that of those documents that it was something that you pay. It was a different sort of document. So those documents you can return. So Rava says 1 second, but those documents also have a repayment clause in it, that if you pay it up, then those documents become invalid. Now what you're doing is maybe you paid it up and then you're giving those documents and then they're going to confiscate again. So there's a concern over there also about Piran. And I say that you can always retract a property that was taken. You can always, if you come up with the money, you can pay it off. Elama Rava, rather Rava says, what's the reason over there? The reason why in the Mishnah, if the person would have paid up the debt, you should have taken that adrachta, that foreclosure note, and torn it up. He said, I'm giving you money, give me the foreclosure note, I want to destroy it. Or if the property was confiscated, or if he paid it up, if he paid up the money without the property being confiscated, he says, I want a new note of sale, that you sold me the property that you had the rights to confiscate. Because really, in truth, you're actually able to keep the property. Because he's supposed to do what's just in the eyes of God. The Rabbanan said that you should leave me with the property, that I shouldn't lose the property. Hilkach, that's only a institution of the sages. Hilkach mireishahu dekazavin. Therefore, it says if you're buying it from brand new, and therefore you should write him a new document of sale. So if he's actually going to pay it up, those cases in the Mishnah, where there was a Maisa Bezdin, and you're returning it to the lender, so then when the borrower should have said, then I want a new document. What type of document? Either I want to either tear the document, or I want a new document, which is a document of sale. But however, Gabi Shtar Chayiv, but when it comes to a promissory note, which that's what Shmuel was talking about, what is there to say? If it was paid, then he should for sure have torn it up. So that's why over there we're not concerned. But the Gemara says, no, that's not true. We could say that he could say, I'll give it to you tomorrow. When he paid him back, it could be he could tell him that I'll give you the document tomorrow. Why? Because I don't have it. I'm holding on to the document just a little bit longer because you never paid me for the scribe. Because when the officially the one that has to pay for the document is the borrower, but the borrower didn't have money to pay for the document, so the lender did both. He lent him the money and paid for the document. But when it comes time to paying up, so then he pays him back. He says, "But I want the money for the scribe for writing the document." So he paid him back the loan, but he didn't pay him for the document, so he's holding on to the loan. So it could be that even though in the Mishnah it said that you could return it right away to the lender, but that's not a proof that in a regular promissory note you can return it to the lender. That's Shmuel's Chiddush, that you can return it to the lender, and we're not concerned that maybe he's holding it an extra day, or maybe he's holding it for the scribe. Interesting. I guess there's a sale because he's handing him something when he's getting it. Oh, but, yeah. Okay. Amar Rabavo, Rabbi Yechanan. Rabavo says name of Rabbi Yechanan. Someone finds a document in the marketplace, even though it has the notarization on it that this is a valid document. He argues on what we said in the name of Shmuel. You don't return it. It goes without saying that if there was no henpick on it, if it wasn't notarized, that we could say that it was never actually, he never actually borrowed. Maybe he wrote that he was going to borrow, but he never really borrowed. But even if it was notarized, which that means that the witnesses needed to show up in court and tell us that they signed on this document telling us what happened. My neo, what does it mean? What does the hempik mean? The makoyim. Nevertheless, layachzer. You shouldn't return it, according to Rabbi Vo in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, the chayshinan lepirayin, because we're concerned about repayment. That maybe even though the document is valid, sure it's valid. It was valid, but it's not valid anymore because it's been repaid. This seems to be a machlaikas. Eisvei Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbi Vo. Rabbi Yirmiyah asked Rabbi Vo a question. What about that Mishnah that we quoted before? Any document that comes from the court, you return it to the lender. Malay, so Rabbi Vo says to him, Yirmiyah Bri, Yirmiyah my son. Call Yirmiyah Bri, like call Ma'aseh Bezdin Shavim. Yeah, there's different types of Ma'aseh Bezdin. Over here, we're talking about Al-Kain Shachs Kafran. Over there, when we said that you return it, Ma'aseh Bezdin, you return, that's because they asked him to pay it, and he denied. He denied it. Now, when they ask him again, when they take the document out again, he's going to claim that we don't trust him if he claims that he paid it. Yeah, he already lied about this once. Amarava, this doesn't make sense. Because he lied about this once, that means he's never going to pay it. And now you're saying that he definitely didn't pay it because he lied about it. That Mishnah is talking about things that don't have an issue of pirayin, because even if he would have paid it, he would have taken the documents right away and torn it up, or they would have gotten the sale, like we explained before in Reb Zera. Reb Zera said that there's no pirayin over there. There's no concern. The foreclosure or the authorization documents. It's not just a regular promissory note. The kafra, and once we're talking about people that deny, and then afterwards they say that no, I fixed up the problem. The name of a milsa. Once this comes into our hands, let's discuss this more. Rav Yosef bar Menimi, Rav Nachman. Rav Yosef bar Menimi says the name of Rav Nachman. Let's say there was a person, they told him that he owes money. He didn't. He ends up in court. He denied it. Then he ends up in court, and the court made a psak, seitain, like go and give it to him. And then he says parati. He says I paid it. Yeah. He says I paid. So he's neman. He has to take an oath called the Shavuos Heses, but he's trusted with that he paid it. Malva lichtayv. Let's say the Malva he wants to write a document for foreclosure, wants the court to write a document for foreclosure to confiscate. Saying he already said he paid. They're not going to write it for him. Let's say the Bezdin didn't say go and give it. The Bezdin just said you're obligated to give it. Didn't say go and give it. We're making a difference over here. Apparently, the court would discuss the case, and then afterwards they would issue a verdict. So in discussing the case, they said that he's going to be obligated, but they didn't issue the verdict yet. So because this person wasn't the type of guy that's ready to pay so easily, because he already asked him for the money and the guy said no, he denied it. And now he ends up in court, and the court hasn't finalized the whole thing. We assume he didn't pay till the very, very end. So, Ra'amar Parati, Ein Eman. He's not even trusted to make an oath, even with an oath. It is not trusted. If the lender comes and says, let's write a foreclosure document, they write it for him. Rav Zvid Mishmei Rav Nachman Amar Bein Seitan LeBein Chayvat Litin Lai B'Amar Prati Neman. Rav Zvid, in the name of Rav Nachman, says different. different than Rabbi Yosef Bar Yomi on the name of Rav Nachman. He says that it doesn't matter if he says you're obligated or whether you're whether go and give it. Both of them, if the person says, if the borrower says that I paid it, he's trusted because that's basically the verdict. And then if the lender wants to get a foreclosure document, they won't give it to him. But if we want to make a distinction between the difference, lefluga usually means to argue. It means if you want to make a distinction between the two cases, if you said tzeitan lay or chayav atalitan lay, we can do this distinction. Amrulite tzeitan lay. If he said go and give it to him, which means that's basically the psak. Amar parati, and he says that I paid it. And then you have witnesses that say that he didn't pay it when he asked him for it after that. So then it says then he goes and he says that I did pay it. He already denied it once, and the witnesses said that he didn't pay it, and now afterwards he's claiming that he paid it. That's not we don't accept it. But if he said you're obligated to pay, and he says that I paid, the witnesses say that he didn't, and afterwards he said that he paid, that then he's not considered an absolute liar, and we could trust him with an oath. My time, he's just delaying because the rabbis are still looking into the case. I still have hope. This is like the hope that people have with a appeal. No, I'm still going to appeal. How many times can you appeal a case? Oh yeah. You can't just say I don't like the verdict.
In criminal court,
In the civil court.
As long as you have money to pay the attorney, keep going.
He didn't hear that.
In the Besdin, it's so common for people to complain after the case that they're not satisfied with the verdict, the one that they lost, the one that lost. But they said, but they didn't hear the thing, and they ignored this evidence and this, and there's always like all of this stuff. And what happens in the court when you do that? You complain, they lost. What can you go and say?
You go to Ballotpedia and you knock the judge, and then you go to social media and you knock.
Can you appeal it just because you're not happy with the case?
You have a grounds. Kind of very quickly.
Okay.
We can talk after.
Amar Rabba
I'm asking,
Barbachana.
he's asking for a friend.
No, I have it every time, every court case, every dintera. So someone said, don't get involved in dinteras. You'll either make one enemy or two enemies. Yeah.
Take that advice.
Yeah. No, not never, but I stopped. But what did they say? That this guy is he had a shiloh with his whiskey company, Pesach, and this. The Rav said you have to throw everything out. It's okay to anyway. The next day there was a dintera or something. I mean, the Rav said, "Okay, you lose." He said, "What? What type of Rav are you?" This. He said, "But yesterday you're ready to throw out your whole company." No, he says, "Yeah, I'm not giving it to him." Okay. Amar Rabba Barbachana, Amar Rabbi Yechanan. Rabba Barbachana says the name of Rabbi Yechanan, Manali biyad. Someone tells his friend, Yomi money. The other one says, I don't know you anything. Witnesses testify that he does owe. Then he says, I paid you. This is classic. So he's obviously a liar for this thing. First he says he doesn't know, and now he says he paid it. Okay. We have a story. Shabsai, the son of Rabbi Marinus. Well, it looks like he he promised her a mink coat, some sort of fancy wool coat. Mill says wool, Persian wool, in her ksuba. And the kibla, like, she accepted that. Irkas ksubasa, but she lost the ksuba. Amar, he says, I never promised that. Also, Sadi witnesses came Amar in Kasavla. That you did write it. The Seif Amalu Prati says I paid it already. Also, they came to Reb Chia. Amalei Hosakafan, I said, you're not trusted. Yeah. We have another quote very similar to this. That anyone that says that I didn't borrow basically just admitted that he didn't pay it back either. If you didn't borrow, then you didn't pay it back. So that means you admitted to the debt. Right? If somehow we can now prove, if somehow we can prove that there is a debt, then you've already admitted that you never paid it. So. Amar Rav and Amar Abilai Amar Rabbi Yechanan. Is this? I'm wondering if this is exactly the Kalei Malay Lavisi Kamalei Prati Damir. If this is something slightly different. I'm not sure. Where are we holding? Rabbi Avin says in the name of Rabbi Lai, in the name of Rabbi Yechanan. Haya Chayav Lechaver Shvua. Let's say the Besdin says that you have to take an oath. So I don't know how it works, but maybe they go into the next room or something. And then he says, he said, I took the oath. The Edom say, he never took the oath. He was supposed to take the oath in front of they mumbled something. So they said, that was the oath. They said, no, we didn't hear it. You didn't take an oath. So, now because we have Edom that said that he took an oath, that said that he didn't take an oath, and he claims that he did. He can't now claim and say that I took the oath. He already lied about it once. They said this in front of Rabavo, what Rabbi Yechanan said. This Rabavin said in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, that would make sense. That's if the Besdin issued on him an oath that he's Huchsa Kafran. But if he himself agreed to take a shvua, then, in other words, he said, I'm going to swear to you. So then, Naaman, he's trusted because Avadinish the Mikra V'Amar, it's possible that person will say, I think it's saying that a person will say that he'll say that he didn't do it, and then afterwards he'll do it. I'll say that he did it already, and then he'll do it later. But if it's not in Besdin, let me look at the notes on that. This refusal is viewed as a delaying tactic, not as a retraction of his offer to swear. Let's see how they say it. However, if he voluntarily obligated himself to swear on an oath, he is believed to claim that he swore, even if witness testified that he did not swear upon demand. For a person is wont to say, he will not perform that which the court has not obligated him to do. Yeah, therefore his prior refusal to swear in the presence of the witnesses does not demonstrate a brazen unwillingness to swear. That was just a delaying tactic. This came back to Ravavin. I said that also. What I said in the name of Rabbi Yechon was also talking about in court. But over there, if he refuses to swear, then or if he denies, if he says that he swore and the Edom say that he didn't swear, then it's we don't trust him anymore. Itmarnami Amar Ravav and Amar Abilai Amar Rabbi Yechanan. You have another statement. If he says that I swore, and what we added by this is we said that it took place in Besdin, which is exactly the way that Rabavo was claiming that it would make sense. Amar Rabasi Amar Rabbi Yechanan. Rabasi says, name of Rabbi Yechanan, someone finds a promissory note in the street, in the marketplace, because of by hempik, and it has on it it's notarized. That means it went into the Beis Din, and the Beis Din says there's a stamp of the Beis Din on it that says that it's valid. And it has on it a date of that day, that exact day. Then you could return it to the owner. What are you worried about? Maybe it was written, but he never really borrowed. A custom by handpick. It can't. That's impossible because you already it has on it. It's notarized. So that means the witnesses showed up and said that this was valid. And if you're worried about that it was paid back, the priya no one pays back the same day.
Whoa.
Amalei Rab Zeir Rabasi Miyam Rab Yechanan Achi. Did Rab Yechanan really say this? Atu the Amrit Mishpei Rab Yechanan. But we have a case where you said in the name of Rab Yechanan, Shtar Shalava Bayuparai, Einachei Shalava Bayshikparnim Choshibudei, that if there was a document that was used once and it was paid back, you can't use it again. A promissory note. You can't use that same promise. It says Amos. When would you even think of using it again? That's supposed to be Yom Achara. If it's for tomorrow or for the next day, why are you saying because the pledge has already been forgiven? It's a predated note, and that's a problem with Psulim. And we know that if it's predated, it's possible. Why? Because you're going to end up confiscating properties before the loan from people that purchased it. That's invalid. You can't have a predated promissory note. It must be that case where you said where you can't use a document twice was because it was for the same day. Alma parianish biyame. Obviously, people pay it back on the same day. Now you're telling me that you can return it because people don't pay it back on the same day. Did I say that they never pay back? It's not common for people to pay back. And if someone did pay back, you can't use that document again. Rav Kana Amar kind of says this, that you can return a document to the lender. That's only talking about Kishachayev Maida. That's talking about when the borrower agrees that he owes the money. Then you return it to the lender. Changes the whole story. If that's the case, then what do I need the Chiddush? What do I need Rabbi Yechanan to say this? Of course, if he agrees, you return it. Says Mao the Tema. I could have answered like this. I could have thought like this. This was really paid back once. By the Kamalei Parati, in this that he's saying that it wasn't paid back. He wants to use it again. He wants to borrow money again. And he just doesn't want to pay us another scribe. He's the borrower. So Kamash Malan is coming to teach us that Im Kain, if he was trying to use the same document again, Malva Gufei Le Shavik, the Malva wouldn't allow it. Why? Maybe the sages are going to hear that I'm reusing the same document and I won't be able to collect from other people. So in other words, the Malva would refuse to use the same document again. So here, this is very interesting because if you remember, we had this Gemara before, where if you find a document, who do you return it to? And one of the answers that we gave, I think it was actually Rav Kana, one of the answers that we gave was that Kishachayev Maida. No, we didn't have over there Kishachayev Maida. We just said Kishachayev Maida. We had Shmuel that said Ein Chayev Maida. Yeah, we said we had this case before. We said, when would you return it to the lender? We were talking about when the borrower agrees that he owes the money. And we said over there that no, that's only if we would only return it to the lender. We'd only return it to the lender if it doesn't have achrayas nechasim in it. Because if it has achrayas, then could be there's a kinunya. Could be they made up that he already paid up. Maybe really he paid up, but he's trying to get rid of the purchaser of the properties that he had sold. So he says, I didn't pay. And then meanwhile, together they're going to extract that property from this new person. So there was a problem over there. Now over here we're saying that no, you don't have to be concerned about that problem of of maybe it was really paid up. We have a different problem. We're not concerned about this because they can never use. The problem is over here. Maybe there's kanunya. Why don't we say that? What's the difference from what we learned before? If someone finds documents, promissory notes, if there's if there is a lien on property, not allowed to return it. We said that the problem was when he is this was when the borrower agrees that he owes the money. Okay, we said over there that the issue was, this is one of the issues, that maybe it was predated. Maybe they wrote the note now, and they borrowed later, and you're going to end up confiscating property from the purchaser, not in its from a time that the purchaser had no problem purchasing it. And over there, we didn't say we never said that the lender would never allow this. Why don't we say the exact same logic that we're saying over here, that he would never allow to use the same. Over here, we're saying the lender would never allow to use the same document because the rabbis are going to stop him from collecting if he uses the same document. Over there, we should also say that he would never allow to write the document early because the rabbis are not going to allow him to collect. They're going to say the document's invalid. Amri, if there's a chance that he may gain by collecting, even though it's dishonest, he may gain and he may be able to confiscate property from people that have purchased it early. So then he's not going to complain about that because, okay, he'll have an extra chance to be able to get it. But the Leslie Ravcha, over here, he has no gain. The document was written for today. What is he going to gain by using the same document again? Nothing. So therefore, we say that he definitely wouldn't allow it. Over there, he has a gain. Okay.
The borrowers want to pay for the property.
Yeah. All good. Have a good day.
In Jerusalem.
I'm going to Pchia Barabba, I'm Rabbi Yochanan. Pchia Barabba says the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Someone claims that he paid up a Maisa Bezdin. Maisa Bezdin would mean something like a ksuba, something that's been instituted by the court. And he says that he paid it, but it doesn't have witnesses to it. So, Lo Yamar Klum, we don't trust him. We're on top of 17b. My time, what's the reason? Kol Maisa Bezdin. Now, even though there's if he doesn't have a document, so he doesn't have to pay with witnesses. If you have a promissory note, then when you pay it back, you have to pay it back with witnesses. But if you just tell someone that you owe me money, and the person can pay you back by without witnesses, because he doesn't have even witnesses that you lent the money. It works like equal. But over here, because it's a Maisa Bezdin, so Kol Maisa Bezdin because this was an enactment by the court, so it's as if there is a document, and you have to pay it back with witnesses. Pchia Barabba, the great student of Rabbi Yochanan, he says to Rabbi Yochanan, isn't this exactly what we learned in our Mishnah? And this was interesting because it's Rabbi Barabba, the name of Rabbi Yochanan, that's saying it over, but he's telling us the conversation. He says, what does the Mishnah say? Metzia get. If she takes out the get, she shows him, you divorced me. She doesn't have the document that says that the ksuba document, which she's supposed to have, but nevertheless, just with the get itself, she can collect her ksuba. So we have a Mishnah already. As long as we know she's divorced, she can collect it. Amalei. So Rabbi Yochanan says to Pchia Barabba, if I didn't lift up the shard, you wouldn't have found the pearl under it, which basically means that now that I told you the halacha, now when you read the Mishnah, you see it clearly. Amar Abaya, Abaya says, "My Marganisa, what type of pearl is he talking about? What's so special?" Dilma, maybe that Mishnah is talking about the Makim Shen Kaisim Ksuba Skina. We're talking about a place now. We know today everyone has a ksuba, right? They can't even stay alone without the ksuba. The document exists. Back then, the ksuba was an institution, but it didn't mean that they wrote the document. Doesn't mean that there was an actual document that you held on to. It's just when they get divorced.
Frame it on
Right.
the wall.
Is it possible that she doesn't have the super because the husband already paid?
Yeah, that's a possibility. That's a possibility. But one second. Here, she doesn't have the ksuba. Maybe we're talking about makom shein kaisim ksuba skins because they don't even write a ksuba in that place. And the get hainu ksubasa because the get is the functions as the ksuba. Aval b'makom shekaisim ksuba. But in places where they do normally write a ksuba, so then in akita ksuba, if she has the ksuba, then gavya, then she could collect. Ilai gavya. And if she doesn't have the ksuba, then she can't collect. Maybe that's what it's talking about. So what is Rabbi Yochanan saying that my words are found in the Mishnah? Not necessarily. Could be that the Mishnah is only talking about places where there's no ksuba, and that's why without the ksuba she could collect because they never have a ksuba. Other Amar Abaya said, Milsi Damri. I asked a good question, but I retract from it. If that Mishnah was talking about places where they don't write a ksuba, but in places where they do write a ksuba, in other words, if you would follow the way that I was suggesting, then she needs the actual document. So then, and if she doesn't have the ksuba, then she can't collect. Then almana min eirsin b'may gavya. Then what about a widow from a betrothal? So officially, there should be a they don't write the ksuba yet until the wedding,
right? But
the debt of the ksuba should already exist. So if she's a widow, Beidi Misa Sabal, what are you going to say that because witnesses, she doesn't have a get, doesn't have a document, right? So all she has is witnesses that the husband died, the betrothed died. So is that going to be enough? Litain Velema Parati. Maybe the inheritors are going to say that he paid you back. He paid you for it. If that's the case, that they can always claim that. So why did the sages institute a ksuba if you can just get out of it with an easy claim? So Markshisha, which is maybe either the older son of Rav Ashi or the younger son of Rav Ashi, it's called Markshisha because he was born when Rav Ashi was old, which makes him younger. So, but he says when Rav Chizda was old, which makes him younger. So he says to Rav Ashi, "Valmana mina erisin this like ksuba minal." And how do you even know that she has a ksuba? She was never married; she's only betrothed. If it's because of a Mishnah that says if it's because we have a Mishnah that says that a widow or a divorcee, whether it's Erisin or whether it's Nesuin, it collects everything. Maybe that's only in an instance where he actually wrote the ksuba for her, but not if he didn't write the ksuba. It's a kasha on the answer of Abaya. If that's the case where they wrote the ksuba, then what's the chiddush? No, there still is a chiddush. It was necessary to say it because Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah held that even if they wrote a ksuba for the betrothal, but she can't collect because that ksuba is only written with the intention that when they get married, it's going to be effective. But they never got married, so she would get nothing. In other words, basically, your whole answer to the question is that what are we going to do about someone that's a widow from a betrothal? Because how is she going to collect the ksuba? And we're going to say that there's the question on that answer is that there is no ksuba. You mean if there is a ksuba and he owes the money and he never received, he never got married. Dekanami Diktani, I can prove this to you because it says Goivasakol. It says she collects everything. Obviously, it's talking only when he wrote her the document. because I know the Katani Gavasakal, that's where it says that he collects everything. She collects everything. Eliyamet like Kasavla. But if you say that he didn't write it for her, my Gavasakal, what do you mean that collects everything? Manamasaimu Disla. It's not Gavasakal collects everything. It's whatever it is instituted by the sages, which is either 100 or 200, depending on if it's a virgin or not. Okay. So Abaya's answer is not a good answer. Abaya's question is left strong. Rather, we have a statement, a teaching from Reb Chia Barami that says, "Ishta Yarusa lo'einen v'le'metamin la." His wife that's only betrothed. We're on top of 18a. His wife that's only betrothed. He doesn't. He's not an einen for her, and he doesn't become contaminated for her if he's a kayan, right? Now, and she doesn't become contaminated for him now. That even if she's a kayahenes, she's allowed to. What it means is that she's not obligated to go to his funeral. They weren't that related. Okay, Mesa, if she dies, Ena Yarsha, he doesn't inherit her. Mesu, if he dies, Goiva Ksubasa, she collects the Ksuba. See, she has a Ksuba. Abaya's answer is back. There is a Ksuba, and how does the Ksuba work? If they, if there's no document, talking about the right, there's no document. So the guy can just say, the inheritors can just say that it's paid. Dilma the Kasavla. How do you know there's no document? Maybe there is a document. The Kasavla, if you're gonna say, it's supposed to say, the Kasavla that he wrote the document, then what's the chiddush that he collects it? May say in the Yarsha Strichale. Did we have other chiddushim in that? It doesn't have to be only that chiddush. Okay. Ella Abaya, rather, where does Abaya get this from? That his answer, that it has to be that we're talking about, that it doesn't matter whether there was a ksuba or whether there's no ksuba. You can always, from that mishnah, you can collect the ksuba just with the get. Okay. It was from the actual mishnah that made him retract from his question. And if it would enter your mind that we're dealing with a place that you don't write a ksuba, and therefore the get haina ksubasa, when he shows up with the get, that would be the ksuba. To get mana masaim ksive. Does it actually say 100 or 200 in the ksuba? Doesn't say that in the ksuba. And the get, does it actually say in the get that after the divorce now he owes her? It doesn't say any money in it.
Everybody's presumed just to know this.
Right.
No,
So you don't need the ksuba. Yeah. Yeah. When it comes to money, everyone becomes scholars. So, but the only problem with this, so what that it doesn't say it in the get? The fact that it was instituted, so once you have a get, then the debt is there. So lita in velema parati. But if it's not written in the get, then you can just claim always that you paid it up. Maybe we'll say damrina le parati by lil mikre. If it was paid up, then you should tear the get. If he paid her, then we should tear the get. Amalan. So you could say, in other words, she's claiming that I still have the get. You never paid me. But he would say, she didn't let me tear the get. Amra binalin subebe. I need the get to use to get remarried. Right. So maybe he we say to him, we should make a tear in it. And right on top of it, Gita dinan de karanu. This get that we tore. Not because it was invalid, but rather that she should not be able to collect again from it. Okay, so basically, we're holding now is that she has a get, and she's claiming the ksuba. He's claiming that she didn't let me tear it up. We're saying no. You still have to pay because you should have written on it that it was torn because it was paid, and she's still holding on to it because she wants to get married. It says, "Atu kol the magvi beidina, atu kol the magvi bebeidina magvi." In order to write that statement, then that would have to be done in court to be able to write on the get that statement. And really, he paid her out of court. He didn't have to pay her in court, so he paid her out of court. So what would happen over here is that if we would trust that any time where there's no ksuba, we would say that that's when we consider it paid. But if there is a ksuba, then if there is a ksuba, let me see how your thing finishes, concludes this.
How would she have possession of the get if you didn't give it to her? Why didn't he just write it down?
What was that?
Why doesn't he just write it on it before he gives it to her?
Oh, that would be it. The husband was unaware that he could rip the get and still let his divorcee retain it as a proof of divorce. That he was unaware of. What is this? In the place where he paid the ksuba to his ex-wife, there was no bezdin to instruct him about the proper procedure. So if so, the unripped get produced by the woman does not demonstrate that the ksuba obligation was not paid. Abaya therefore reversed his position, concluding from the Mishnah that one is never believed to claim payment of a court-imposed obligation without proof. Okay, let's leave it over here.
So it's not the Mishnah, right?
Yeah.